What is going on out there? This is Keaton 7 with TeamJVS, and we just finished the first episode of House of the Dragon Season 2, A Son for a Son. How y'all doing after this? I'll start with you, Bizzy. How you feeling, Bizzy?
That was definitely an episode.
Yeah.
I mean, the title. They got what they wanted, right? No, I mean,
they are not liars.
they're true to their word, and you gotta appreciate that, I guess. The dog got kicked. There was that.
Yeah, that happened. All right. We're gonna get in. Yeah, we're gonna get into that. I think that's a great place to. I think that's a great place to end. Let's see. Jedi Mike, how you doing?
He's fine. He's fine. He's good.
Don't you feel guilty, Mike, because you don't care?
You don't care.
Yo, that's sick, bro.
This dude still flashing his colors after that. Like, he's still throwing up the set after that. Like
when it's time to stand on business.
Oh
you know what?
Bro, nah.
Right.
Next person.
Right.
Who's
Right.
next?
I'm gonna go to the next. I'm gonna go to the next person while Jedi Mike figures out what stand on business is supposed to mean. Let's see. Ronin,
Look, the T-shirt crying, he crying.
My boy needs a hug.
How you doing, Ronin?
They're these sick fucks. But listen, it's Game of Thrones. It's George R.R. Martin. It's House of Dragon. Lines were crossed. Fuck cross. No, lines were like fucking sweat, man.
Lines were killed in their sleep.
It's upsetting how the episode was going. But I think it doesn't stray away with the tone of this franchise.
Yeah.
Which probably is why, I like it, but I'm not into it like a lot of people are. I have enough trouble with The Last of Us, so yeah, fuck, man. What the fuck, man? I need a beer.
yeah. It is I could definitely use
and I did not see it coming.
A sip of something after that. Yeah, it was we're gonna get into it.
Fuck yeah.
Ant, I feel like you're just fine.
Look.
Wow, he got a sword on his back. Has that been here the whole time?
Oh yeah. I came prepared for this. Yeah, I ain't come prepared. I came with flags. I came with swords.
No.
Anyway, so
I'm just biting my nails over here, man.
Look, man. All right, people. Y'all might not know this, but they came on here repping Team Black, green for the streets. What y'all think war is? It's children dying. It's all right. It's gonna be okay.
Oh my
ain't
god.
gonna be the first thing we last. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. Look. It was worse. It was worse for our book readers. It was worse. Y'all got off early. Y'all got off easy. I
heard that it was rough in the books, but at the same time, I don't. So I'll say this. I'll say this, and then I'll pass it over to Sam. I had gotten this spoiled for me as far as what was going to happen, but there's a difference. So let me say this. I feel like there's a difference between knowing what's going to happen and how they do it.
Execution.
And how they do it. The way they executed that was brutal. That was absolutely brutal, because I mean it's not the first time we've seen kids not make it in Game of Thrones. I mean, you remember what happened to Ramsay's stepmom and her kid, right? And that was absolutely brutal, but it wasn't like we heard it happening, but not like this. This was on another level. And it was, I'm not gonna lie to you, I felt like it was triggering. Sam?
So wait. Can I say something real quick before I think that I think they got the reaction they wanted out of y'all. I think it was different because even if we knowing it was going to happen, I think hearing the wetness of the sounds and the kind of person in shock, I think it is trigger for a lot of people. But I think that's what they wanted from y'all. And I think they were setting the tone for the rest of the season.
Well, and I think one thing that is also interesting too is I feel like in order for us to even begin to try and see both sides, it would take one side doing like the blacks doing something absolutely brutal. And what's interesting is it doesn't seem like this is what was planned. This is not how it was right. And it's the same way that the last season ended, how Aemon didn't really want Vhagar to do all that, but Vhagar was like, I'm my own woman and I'm independent, and did her thing. And this time, these two went rogue. They were supposed to be there to kill Aemon and ended up doing something absolutely diabolical. And so what I really think happened here was they set the tone that no matter what happens, there cannot be any forgiveness now. Like this was like that line stepping they talked about Rick James always used to do. Like, right? Like this was next level.
But look how they did it, because all through this episode we saw the Greens like, well, stuff happens. I mean, now she can bend the knee and and they're all because not that they hadn't lost anything. They didn't have anything, and now it's a different animal. And so everybody's talking about what's the woman that could have been queen, but she got outvoted or whatever.
The ant,
Rhaenys.
So everybody's like, why don't you end it right there? Because when you kill family, when you kill the children, when you kill it, it escalates it's a blood war now. It's a blood feud.
Yeah, you're right.
People might say this was a war crime.
We'll get into this for sure. But
Sam,
we haven't heard from Sam yet. We haven't heard from Sam. Sam's been quiet, and I saved him for last because I knew it hit him. This episode hit him the hardest, so I've been saving him for last. Go ahead, Sam. Give your thoughts, man.
The episode itself was well crafted. It sets the tone for the rest of the season. I mean, like some of the shots they did. I mean, we're going to get into it and break it down fully, but I think the thing about this is I think of it from a more realistic standpoint. Two men literally ambushed the mother, cornered her, had her at knife point, and basically said, pick which one of these children that we need to perceive is the boy. And she's not knowing whether or not they're going to kill all of them, or she had to literally pick her child to die and then had to literally watch as they dismembered the child and then pick up the other one and slowly walk out. Like, bro, like, I don't think I've seen anything like that in a while. Like, I think about that from a literal standpoint.
Behead.
No, I'm just saying that it doesn't.
It was
either
bad.
way. She picked the death of her child. She picked the death of that's you. Any kind of situation, like sometimes it's like like you got to do this or like you figure this out. But no, she willingly went and picked the death of her own child.
Yeah,
like that's it. Like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. I think that some of you guys that are gonna watch this, if you guys were book readers, you guys know like the way that it was done, the way it was happened, and you're anticipating it. That was the last thing that was on my head was gonna happen. And I thought it was really mortifying.
The thing is, I think that this is just a crazy situation on its own. I mean, realistically, those dudes are nuts. So at the end of the day, if she tried to intervene, nothing was going to happen. And if she didn't say anything, that's both of them. Those dudes are making they're earning their money either way. She had an impossible decision to make, and unfortunately she made it. It's not, can't really say it's the right one, but what other options are you gonna do?
But also, can I throw this out? Anybody who's a cinema fan, if you've seen The Godfather Part 2, a spoiler, if you will, there's a moment throughout the whole movie, Michael Corleone's the Don, and he's going down this dark path, and he keeps asking his wife because she's pregnant. I think like was there a miscarriage? Was it a boy and whatnot? Because he wants an heir to the Corleone family. the mom right here that focused on a knife throat. At the beginning, she just like let the kid be in the library, like in the the Aegon, whatever his name is, was just like, no, he needs to be with me so he knows what to do when he's there. And again, it's a fucked up thing. But what if her choosing him was also to be like, I don't want him to go through this shit again, and it's to like almost put an end for this time of like no more heirs, like I don't want the family to go through this anymore, and maybe deliberately chose that. I don't know. It reminded me of the Godfather Part 2 when Michael's wife finally tells him that it was a son and she had an abortion because she wanted this Corleone mafia shit to end. She had enough of it and whatnot. So
I do you one better because she already seen it. She already knew that this was going to happen.
That's one thing that's interesting because last season they kind of implied that she has like the sight, like she can see stuff before it happens. Like they definitely alluded to that last season several times. She would say stuff. She would say like weird stuff, and it was like, what was that all about? Like, and so I think that's what they were throwing out there throughout the whole time. But like I said, like this is what gets me about just everything about Westeros. Like whenever I think about this show, I think about glorious shots, I think about beautiful cinematography, I think about top tier acting, right? But from time to time, this show will just throw stuff at you like an absolute curveball right after that beautiful cinematography, right after that epic moment that you loved, right after you're excited, and it'll just bring you to your knees. And I think that's what happened. And like we said, because the thing is, I remember when they first released the trailers for this season, they released a Team Black trailer and a Team Green trailer, and all of us were even joking around like, who out here is Team Green? Who out here? Who would there be Team Green? After this, because we got to remember, don't nobody know they were Arkham inmates that did this. They just think Rhaenyra ordered it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not thinking, oh, these people aren't all there. They're just like, Rhaenyra came in, and even though Aemon did it, they ordered who kills the kid, and there's no talking them out of that. They're not going to send a raven for that. There's no ravens being sent no more. And so I think, like I said, as much as I hated it, I feel like it had to happen so that we will view everything that happens next from both sides, and we can understand the actual anger of the Greens, because before that it was an I lost. It was an I lost during a funeral where he stole the dead mom's dragon. That's all that happened. Like that was it. That was it. Now it's like, okay, I see what's behind their anger now. I can see it a whole lot more. And as much as I hated it, I do think it had to happen, because if it's going to be the Hatfields and the McCoys, you need to be in the middle seeing it instead of from only one side.
So, and I want to say this. I just want to, because I'm gonna go get a beer right now. I really need the beer. I want to give a shout out to Olivia Cook and Emma Darcy. Emma Darcy showed us just for an hour, whenever we were with her, just denial that she lost a kid, and denial of like, okay, now what's the response?
Bro, she said like 5 words all episode too.
Yes, but she said 5 words, but she said paragraphs with just the looks.
Essays
Sure. with her looks. And with Alicent, with Olivia Cook, you just visually you could see an invisible like loose around her neck, just tightening the whole time, because she's a mother. Her heir is now the king, and he doesn't know what the hell to do, and she's trying to keep diplomacy going, even though everyone's telling her like, yo, it's wartime, that's long gone, like shit went down. And even the moment, I think we were saying about how the candle of her single prayer for the kid that died, it said a lot. And that's why just shout out to them. I just want to say that because I didn't want to get that loss out of me. And yeah, now I need a beer.
Yeah. So
think,
let me ask this, because there are some book readers. There are some book readers in here, and I know y'all said that it did not hit you as hard. So let me ask, this is for just the book readers. Did the execution, like how they did it with the noises and everything, did that hit you hard, or is that something that you were expecting based on how it happened in the book? And I'll start with Mike, since I know you and Ant are the two that have read it.
Yeah, because I was really knowing that the scene was coming. The foreshadowing, even again, I'm glad, like, and my wife didn't watch this, again, because I just see a reaction for the first time. I have a picture when I'm reading a novel or series, whatever. Then once get to an adaptation, there's a lot of creative liberties that you could take with it, but still give that same impact and delivery. Now, after our reaction to it, we probably think, oh, they didn't go the way that they did in detail in terms of what we read. But I feel they gave the same execution from the emotional element. Yes, but it could have been even greater if it was done the same way as the book. I'm saying I'm personally not disappointed, but I will say for TV, television purposes, I felt they did took creative approach with that, but still giving a shocking moment to even the people who have not read the books, still giving that same reaction that we had reading the books. But what they did in the book was far more worse than what they did here. But I personally, for me, in my personal opinion, I felt the change to me wasn't that big of an issue for me. And I honestly kind of commend them for doing it, only because it's like, how are you going to visually display that? And I understand it's Game of Thrones notorious for doing crazy things, but how far are they going to go? Once they cross that line, heck, we got, we see stuff in The Boys and Amazon or Prime Video do stuff. And like, so, but we're like, what line are going to cross? Did they go there? But they just did that with just sound. And I still felt gut wrenching. So, yeah, I to me, my personal opinion, I felt like they did it good, but definitely the book was far more worse than what you saw here.
Okay.
I think you guys have changed my opinion on this a little bit. So I think that so when I went through this series, like I remember when the Red Wedding happened in the books, I put the books down for like three to 6 months before I went back to it, right? And then that when they hint that Rob's wife wasn't at the Red Wedding, she was somewhere else, and they hinted that she was gaining weight, meaning there was a chance he had a child. It was like, oh, that's nice. So when the show happened, and one of the first things they do is just stab her belly, I was like, I was not prepared for this. Like I knew what was coming, but I wouldn't know they were going to go this far, and seeing that visual was something different. In this, Sam described the visual of what the mom was feeling and the terror she knew, and the fact that she had a hint that these things were coming. And what I kept focusing on when I was watching the scene was, this wasn't how I pictured Blood and Cheese. Like I pictured him as like almost in my mind cartoon kind of villainy in a way. Like I knew they did something horrible, but in this, how callous they were.
Yeah.
And I like how you said it was an Arkham, they were Arkham villains, and it was kind of like, yeah. And they were so focused on getting paid and getting this hit that they ignored her. She could have screamed for help. She'd have got to the hallway and said guards. But they were so focused and so callous with this child's life. And so when Sam said about the perspective, I started going, all right, let me think about it. Because being a helpless child, you got this huge man, but they're both huge men over top. If you're a child, holding you down, you're woken up, your mouth's covered, and then they just start going into you. You're the mom who has to save the other child and ignore the suffering of your child in the room. And I think that's going to be a lot. That's going to be hard for a lot of parents or just people to even, because there's something in you where once you're a parent and you say those things like, I would never jump in that crocodile den to get my kid. I just have another kid. You can say that when you're a dumb kid. When you become a parent, the instinct to protect your child is almost like unhinged in a way, and so having to ignore that to save your other child, that is a powerful vigil. Sorry, I know that was a long answer. I think Sam's perspective, I think Keenan, I think Mike, I think you guys have changed how I'm looking at this a little bit as far as this versus the book. I still think the choose and having her choose and like your mom didn't love you is still a pretty vicious thing, but I think this one, yeah, I don't know. I think the fight, flight, freeze, appease type thing, and then choosing the survival of your other child and yourself, and being in such trauma that you can't even scream for help, and their callousness was cold. I'm sorry, I talked a lot, but yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
The thing is, one thing I will say too is that I know that from a writer's perspective, and even from just like a television show standpoint, there's this need to always up the ante. It's just like how Ant just referenced The Boys, and it's like they're going to do something even more insane this season than last season, and it's just going to get crazier and crazier. And they did do stuff like that from time to time on Game of Thrones. Like I remember the Mountain and the Viper. Like that was crazy because that was a straight up Mortal Kombat fatality. But that was a grown man. Yeah. With this, it was almost like, okay, what can we do to top the Red Wedding? Well, let's let them hear the sound of the saw, the sound of the sword. And it was absolutely brutal. But at a certain point, I feel this is just me personally. I feel like there's this line between good film and shock value. And I feel like this was more shock value than keeping with all the phenomenal cinematography and acting that we had before. And I don't know. And maybe it's just because we literally just stopped watching it 20 minutes.
I gotta push you back a little bit on that.
So,
because
hold on. Because I know we're going down this road. Just give it a second. I have two different things I want to kind of bring up. I thought it was very interesting because again, I wasn't a book reader. I thought it was interesting them getting in to get rid of the rats because the rats come from season 1. Like we've known where these rats have come from. Like the rats have always been symbolism of getting stuff out, but it's kind of like dragging into a whole different lane, which I thought that was really interesting and tongue in cheek. But the thing about this episode for me is from the very beginning all the way up until this terrible moment. Yes, there was the tragedy of a mother grieving and trying to find her son's remains. She couldn't even fully process or grieve at all. And then Daemon is mad because he can't do anything to relieve her pain and he can't get vengeance, which he normally is able to do. And so it's like this push and pull because the Greens, technically, specifically Olivia Cook's character, she front loaded a lot of like the remorse and empathy. So it was kind of like balancing itself out. And so when it got to this center point, I was like, I know they're not going to kill, this other son, but I don't know what they're doing because I was like, the balance, it's just not lining up because he's not going to die this soon. So it was kind of like, how are we going to throw this off the train? I don't think it was necessarily for shock. I think it's just to show the balance is just shifting. Because the whole entire episode, it was coming to a good resolution, specifically that scene where she was lighting the candle and she was burning the remains. She was praying for the child that died, and she was kind of finally able to grieve, even though she's asking for another kid to be killed. Like they came to some kind of like center point. And like the end of this, at the end of the day, war is bloodshed. Like people die from war that should not die. They had nothing to do about it. I mean, the only thing the kid did, he played with the ball and was like horsing around, right?
It's the innocence. It's the innocence that get killed.
That's the sad part. Think about that now. It's like that was the kid that playing with the ball. Just like Jesus.
And it's like the mother didn't ask for this, the family didn't ask for this, but it happened. And it's kind of like, death begets more blood and more loss and more death. And I think that's the symbolism of the show and in its embodiment in general. So I think it's just riding this wave to where we're gonna go, and I think it's gonna get really brutal. I am emotionally hurt by it.
Right.
But I don't think it was necessarily for shock. I think it was to balance where things are going to go for the trajectory of the rest of it.
Which is kind of what I mentioned before. I think it was just that, like, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of how brutal Glenn's death was in The Walking Dead. And it was how they led up to it, who's it gonna be? And I know, of course, comic book writers knew, but it was like, who's it gonna be? What's gonna happen? Who's it gonna be? And that's the same feeling I got when these two were walking from room to room looking for Aemon, because I had a feeling, I'm like, man, they're not gonna find Aemon. Like, they're not gonna find who they're looking for, but who are they gonna find? And it happened to be her and her two kids, and I was like, Jesus Christ, is this really about what happened? But Sam, you said there was a second time. Right. And Sam, you said you had a second thing? You said there were two things you were bringing up?
I mean, the biggest thing for me was that the house is flooded with so much like people trying to poach and do undermined things. And it's kind of like, honestly, Daemon did this. Like he did this.
Yeah.
I don't even know how to really kind of put it. Because of his actions, whether indeliberate or not,
right,
it caused this.
Right.
And I don't know what this means from that action. It's like this is not gonna end very well for anybody.
But there's two things. I like how just seeing y'all's reaction from this started. This could have been like what's the Twilight people, the Edwards versus Cullens? No, the Edwards.
I don't know. I don't watch that.
Edward versus Jacob. Team Jacob, my generation.
Right. This could have easily been because like, oh, Team Red, Team Green, or whatever. And I feel like and Mr. Martin's right, and he's like, no, this is war. This is like medieval war. Yeah. Like there is no put a sword in your hand at 12 and go kill somebody type of. Yeah, and I think that this was a good way to escalate. Like, no, this isn't going to be pretty. No one comes out of this clean. No one comes. There's not going to be like that. Yeah. Like whoever wins, you're not winning clean. You're not winning without some loss. Right. And so I like that, because even in our response, we're joking around about what teams we're on. I don't think we were joking at the end. Like we're like, you know, because the same terror they felt in that room is the same terror that boy felt in that dragon when he's just trying to go home to his mama. That little boy, you know what I mean? And we could say that the other one was innocent and everything, but it was still terror. These people didn't ask to be in this situation, but you got dragged into something. And the second thing is that the Greens were feeling real safe. And see how they ignored the rat catcher? See how they didn't even pay attention to the servants walking around?
That joke was crazy.
And the only person that noticed him was another servant, right?
Yeah.
And
dude just crip walked through the Red Keep all the way to her room. Like, walking around uncontested, and I think about that. I think that's something too. Is they don't even realize what they're in. Yeah. They don't realize what they're in, and it didn't. I don't think it got real to them until just now. Like now to become like, we're not even safe here. So I mean, I like this, and I wonder if they're going to get a lot of heat for this because people are weird about. It's funny how dogs and children, and they did both in the.
That was not a CGI dog. I don't think it was a CGI dog.
Oh, they did not kick an action.
I don't know, man.
They did not kick an action.
If they kicked a real dog and had this ending, they
didn't kick a real. They didn't kick a real dog. You can kill as many people as you want in America, but you better not touch a single hair on a dog.
No, that was like a plushie or something.
So y'all know more Game of Thrones
Casey Anthony out walking. They still mad at Michael Vick. That's all I'm saying.
Y'all know more about the lore and details more better. I haven't finished it, but I remember there's a moment with Robb Stark in Game of Thrones where these two kids who are killed, and they were for the oh my gosh, what's the other family? Somebody just mentioned
the Karstarks, I think. But I get them all mixed up in my head.
It was the Karstarks because they're cousins. They murdered these two boys from
Lannisters. The Lannisters boys.
And the guy said, like, Robert was like, these boys didn't kill your son. He's like their heirs, that their relatives killed them, and he was like, they were their heirs. And Rob yells at him like, they're boys. Look at them. It took a squad of you to kill two kids innocently. It reminded me of this moment a little bit. I know you guys sing Red Wedding and all, but it was just like, even these two kids who had nothing to do with it, and just because they're the names, they have the names of a rival, they were just butchered.
And just names of rivals, just wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah. But I will say this too, like with that scene, because you want to talk about just how scenes that were shot, like between Rhaenyra and the High Tower, like scene of like, they're both mourning in their own way, but also she's still like saying prayers for the son that's fallen. But even this scene, talk about, I'm watching you guys' scene, of that scene of the child being deleted, and as she's the moment of shock, right? What happens when you're in shock? Your physical reaction, right? You tend to disassociate. So it's like when she just immediately just going straight to the other child, and just walking past. Not only that you're hearing her, hearing the sound of the child, the saw and everything, but you're also the camera is just following her in a single shot as she's just walking down, the stairs and everything. Doesn't know where she's just walking away. And it's like, this is also for some people that, God forbid it, but like if you actually see someone pass away or whatever or something, you're just in shock and you're walking away from that, how you're kind of almost you're disassociating reality at that point, because you're having a physical reaction, and I'm watching you guys' reaction to it. And for me, even though I already know what's going to happen, how they did it too, it's almost just like almost like I'm walking with her.
It's funny she went to her, and she didn't go to the king. She didn't go to a guard. She went straight to her room, and that's pretty interesting too.
What's her mom? What's her mother?
Yeah,
what's her mom doing?
I mean,
Getting busy.
I don't even think she saw that. I don't think she even registered that.
I'm saying she disassociated. She disassociated from reality. I don't even care what mom does. The boy's gone.
Here's another thing. That's interesting too, that I do like that this show is doing. It isn't even what's interesting about this, is horrible as this was. Rhaenyra didn't do this. Rhaenyra she was like, I want you to kill Aemon. Aemon is the person responsible. And she didn't even say, hey, here's how I want you to do it. She was just like, I'm angry and I want him dead. But
no,
then,
she said
she doesn't know
exactly. She said she wanted him. That's right. That's right. She didn't even say
I just want him.
And of course, Daemon, who's always going rogue, always doing his own thing, like, he's the one now at this point pulling the strings, the same way we're annoyed with Daddy Hightower over there, constantly pulling strings, constantly instigating. My man OnlyFan feet pics, constantly instigating, constantly pulling strings. Now from the other side, we got Daemon that's just like, let's just kill him. I'm just mad. Let's just kill him. And dude just hires two junkies to just go in, and they're like, if they got white hair, I guess we kill them. Like, no plan whatsoever, and they're just cold-hearted. And now what this is showing is when your right hand person is unhinged, it just makes the whole situation much worse for somebody that could possibly be a good leader. Because we gotta be honest, as angry as we were with Alicent last season, I definitely don't think she wanted this outcome. And they showed that the way that she said the prayer, because her and Rhaenyra were still best friends. This was Fox and the Hound type stuff, right? Like, they were still best friends. And then there was this schism, and it was like, I hate this, but we can still be civil. And now, because of who is right next to them, this is escalating to a level that cannot be undone.
But that's real life violence.
Yes,
that's real life violence.
100%. People pulling the strings, and innocent people paying the cost. That's literally been the definition of war the entire history of this planet. They just put it on camera. That's
right.
what
It's like playing a thing of telephone.
Yeah,
that's real life. And then it gets to, like, if I started here, we go all the way through the square, and it gets to Ronin, and Ronin be like, "Oh yeah, kill any white hair, got you." Like, and no, because if Aemon got killed, they might have been upset, but they've been like, "I understand. We understand. We can still try to come to
it's
to
like,
peace."
I get why that happened.
I get why that happened. I wish it didn't. I mourned him. I still love him, but that kind of brought itself. I think that they did a real good job also of, because we were calling that other guy Joffrey 2.0, but he actually wanted to be a good guy. He wanted to be a good king, a good fair king too. So now you got to deal with him losing his heir, and how's it going to change his personality? How's it going to or his behaviors? And so I like how they humanized him in this episode too. I don't think we talked about that, but I like how they humanized him a lot with like give the guy back a sheep, and like and the guy was kind of, again, you're right, the number 2 guy always like, all right, maybe we can't give the sheep back, but we can pay him for the sheep, or we can give him a contract for next year or something like that. Like it's the number 2 guy always messing up this
and it's the dichotomy of it too, because you got to look at Hightower. He's not a violent person. Hightower's not a violent person. He's just manipulating.
Personally violent. He's not personally.
He makes moves that become violent.
He makes chess moves. He plays the game. But on the other side of that, we got Daemon, who is straight up about that action. He's like, let's go get on a dragon right now. Let's go.
And because he's more clever than other people.
Let's roll. I know where they at.
Yeah, and because he's smarter than other people, he thinks he can get around certain things, and and usually that's the mistake smart people make, right? Like, I'm clever, I'll get in there and I do that, and it's like, oh, I didn't mean for this to happen. But once you loose the arrow, it's going. Whoever steps in front of it is getting hit. So I don't know. I think I like just our evolution from the beginning of this episode to this. And how people go. It's almost like we were young men marching off the glory of war. Like, you hear them good war songs, and I'm be a legend, and I'm gonna have like the ballad about me, and then we get to war. And it's like, this is not war. Like, this is not what I thought war was.
Right. Like, that 1,000-yard stare comes from somewhere, right? Yeah.
True.
Yeah. One of the things I was
go ahead.
Gonna kind of just say is that because y'all go for a while. I want to kind of get Bizzy and Ronan's perspective on some of the things that they kind of felt in this episode that kind of made them feel like, okay, we're back. And I mean, one of the things I was going to say, even I think when it comes to just Game of Thrones in general, is this uncertainty of where things are going to go. Again, we're not book readers, so we don't really know. But even at the end, when they were going through door to door to door, it could have been anybody's door they could have went through. They could have went to the queen's. If the queen was in there, would they have just like let her live? They wouldn't been able to get out there alive. So it's like, I love how they shot it, because the way they shot it, like, it could have went into anybody's location. And even if it had been the hand of the king, if it had been the queen, I just had no anticipation. I think that's one of the things I love about Game of Thrones. That's one of the things that traumatized me about Game of Thrones. But Bizzy and Ronin, can you guys give your perspective on what are the things that made you kind of feel like, okay, Game of Thrones is back? Because I kind of feel that way, but I'm also traumatized. So
go Bizzy.
I'll let Ronin go first. I gotta cook up my thoughts.
Okay. Again, as someone who is relatively new, more or less, this and has respected this phenomenon from afar. Dynamics with characters, dynamics with the setting, dynamics with the music. Someone said it. They got the budget going, and it's like, well, they got the budget going, but also they cut episodes, if I'm not mistaken. And this was filmed, if I'm not mistaken, during the strikes, so it's another thing to go about. And I don't know, the fact that they make me look at Matt Smith and not just see Doctor Who, but you see this guy who is loyal but also erratic and could do stuff out of either anger or in some instances desperation. It's a lot to commend to. Something that was, it's funny looking at it, but you see Allison doing stuff with this guy that was boning her ex best friend / sister, it's funny to see how stuff changes and whatnot, and you see how she has her own ambition now, and I don't know. It's again the perspectives of like, am I doing the right thing? Did I choose the right move to make for my own family, and is that good for as a community? Because I am in a castle that is ruling Westeros. That's what felt like going back into Game of Thrones and what I have seen of it and what I had always heard of it. That it's like it's these characters that either are effed up or gray as hell, but you can't stop watching. You can't stop wanting to know what's going to happen next to them, regardless of what house or color their banners are. It's just like you just want to know what the hell's going to happen next, and that's a testament.
Yeah. But you busy.
I felt like we were back within the first like 5 minutes of the show. I mean, the music right away. I mean, as soon as we saw the wall, I mean, I kind of started geeking out. The the crest. I mean, seeing the Starks. I don't know, man. I mean, I felt like we were back from the jump, and it really gave me Game of Thrones vibes. This scene specifically, but to really feel the full pull of what Game of Thrones and what season 1 of House of the Dragon did to us. Of course, I didn't really feel that until the last 5 minutes of the show, last 10 minutes, because knowing that it's a premiere, knowing that it's just an episode of Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, whatever you want to call it, it's just, something serious is going to happen. Something is going to get you feeling a certain type of way, no matter what it is. So to see how they handled that last situation, I mean, I'm feeling I'm feeling a similar vibe of what I felt in the past with this show.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, it's just like, I don't know, I was feeling it from the jump. But this show, it's crazy. I'm happy to be back, but I'm not happy to be back.
Yeah. I think it definitely did its job as for a premiere, as far as getting you thinking and needing desperately to know what's going to happen next. I think it did a good job. So I think we're about ready to rate the episode. We're gonna go out of 10, Sam.
Oh, we can do A to F. We can go to A to F.
A to F. Okay, A to F. I'll start with Jedi Mike.
I'll give this an A. I mean, again, I think it's a good start. Definitely setting the tone, because again, I believe this is going on for about another 3 seasons, to my knowledge. I mean, like in terms of having 3 seasons of this show, or possibly 4, until we get to the next Targaryen story in House of Dragons, because there's only so much they can cover in this season. But setting the groundwork again, fire and blood, they said. And again, the performances, I felt they did good reintroduction to these characters when it had been some time from seeing them in season 1, and they just picked off where they left off and everything. And just like it is almost putting another, a shoe that fits, again, right? So yeah, I'll give this A.
All right, nice. Ronin.
I give it an A as well. I don't know if it's A plus or A minus, but it's an A. I was not bored. I didn't feel like anything dragged. I think the timing was right. And again, you see these dynamics between anger, romance, denial. So I give kudos to them, and especially with that gut punch at the end. Yeah. So solid A for me.
All right. Ant, what you thinking?
Mike's muted, bro.
You're muted,
bro.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, I was trying to stop myself from interrupting anybody. Anyway, so I was no, I give it an A. I think that it was shot beautifully, and the angles and whoever's directing this, I really need to know their name because they did a great job. I think the acting was on point. The writing was there, and you need to know more. This is going to be one of those moments in TV that we always think about. This is like prime Game of Thrones seasons 1, 2, and 3 for me. So and it felt good to see the Starks and hear a Stark talk. like it felt good, right? I don't know any House of Stark fans, but
it was good because when they showed Ice, when they showed the sword, I got hype. I was like, okay, we in it, maybe we back.
We love the Starks, and especially we don't think any like I don't know. I just felt good seeing them and being on the wall, and the acting when the prince saw like over the wall, that was great. And I didn't know dragons can pass the wall. So anyway, hey,
yeah, Bizzy.
I'm gonna give it an A-. I really I enjoyed the episode. The ending really lifted up everything for me. I mean, it was really what I think. I don't want, as sick as it sounds. I mean, I fuck with shock value, So I mean, it really made the episode for me. But there was plenty of moments throughout the episode that were amazing as well, such as Rhaenyra and just the way she was kind of expressing her emotion, and then like you guys said, although she said 5 words, she said 1,000 with her eyes.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to seeing how this kind of leads into what's to come. So it's exciting. I'm looking forward to more.
Yeah, good stuff. Sam, what you think?
I can't believe it. It's an A for me, man. It's an A across the board, I guess. This was amazingly shot. It had amazing transitions. I mean, I don't think that they could have done Rhaenyra's progression any better than how they did this here. Because, I mean, especially how we ended with her just looking so mad and upset and dealing with all this bottled up emotion, to her realistically going through everything. And I think having that moment with her hugging her son who was in tears, and trying to emote to the queen about what she already knows she's going to stand on business, it was masterful, I think, on a certain level. It was messed up. I think I just need time to kind of process what we saw, but who knows? We might watch more. So for me, it's an A.
Yeah. And I guess I'll go last, but I definitely give it an A. I'm almost backtracking on the shock value thing I said earlier, because like I said, the more I think about it from a cinematic perspective, from a story perspective, I feel like it had to be something shocking like that to happen to kind of show you just like it isn't like Game of Thrones where it just kept being the Starks that were getting done dirty. This is something different where it's like this is war is hell, and now both sides are super angry because something has happened that they cannot forgive. And so I definitely give it an A. It was shocking, it was brutal, and one thing I did like how they shot and how they showed was Rhaenyra's grief and her reaction to it, because grief is one of those things where it just kind of sits on you, and it doesn't have to be words. It doesn't have to be discussed. You can just see it and you can feel it. And I feel like they just did a phenomenal job conveying that, because all of us were standing up after that dragon scene at the end of season 1. All of us were just like, oh my God, that was horrible. We can't believe that happened. But this episode was all about saying, I know how upset we were last year when it happened, but now, or 2 years ago when it happened, but now we're seeing the mom's perspective and how she's handling and how his brother is handling his death. And so I really thought it was very well done how they portrayed that grief, how they portrayed that denial phase when she's on the beach just like looking for the body. And so I definitely give it an A, and I think it's gonna be a really good season.
Yeah. So to close up shop, we're gonna give everybody time to give their shout outs to where that you can find their content. Bizzy, where can everybody find your content, man?
You can find me at Bizzy Brown everywhere, Bizzy Reactions on Instagram, and over here on TeamJVS dropping reviews.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thanks for joining. Jedi Mike, where can everybody find your content?
You can find me on YouTube at Jedi Mike 7 and also on Instagram at Jedi Mike 7.
Sir, Ronin Unchained, where can everybody find your content, dude?
Find me at Ronin Unchained on YouTube, on the socials, and just believe you'll get some coverage of this show on my channel.
Yes, sir. Aunt Gold, what are your socials? Where can I find you? Your JVS part-time?
I do my best not to be found, except for here and only here. So I'm a limited edition for JVS.
Limited edition.
This man, if y'all look at his tag, it
Put
says
this guy in a
JVS
Funko Pop
part-timer.
box.
Like Batman and Justice League. What in the world? Speaking of Batman, last but not least, where can everybody find you?
I am offended. You can find me right here on TeamJVS, but I also run a podcast with my friend Dr. Amelia Brown, Bat Therapy. It's we take a look at mental health through the lens of comics and film. We've collaborated with JVS a few times, and we really love it if you check this out. We're finishing up Mental Health Awareness Month right now, and so be sure to check us out. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google, we're everywhere where you can listen to podcasts. And if you want to learn more, our website is bat-therapy.com. So please check us out.
All right, guys, we are going to head out until episode 2. Go and check out our full reaction. I think Bizzy is going to try to do something crazy, and I think Ronin Unchained is as well. But we'll talk to you guys soon. Peace, people. Have a good night.
Salud.
Hey.